So part of the panel on innovation in healthcare, e-health, biotech, AI, and digitalization of the healthcare system will be present online. So we have. I wanted to start it by saying that this panel is a panel made in heaven. Because the participants of the panel were kind of the perfect mix, the perfect combination. Unfortunately, we miss one piece of this heaven. So, because heaven cannot be complete only if every one of the saints are there, this will not be, unfortunately, a panel made in heaven. Dr. Alexandru Grogobete, the State Secretary of the Ministry of Health, just announced the organizers that he will not be able to participate and be present. He would have represented the government, the public sector, part of the discussion, which, of course, in Romania, given the healthcare system, the way the healthcare system is organized, is very important to be involved and to be at the table. Nevertheless, I don't know if we already have online the other guest speakers. Yeah, we have. Okay, that's great. So, I also want to welcome Ms. Erin Williams. She's the representative of Maitri. She's the managing director for biomedical innovation. She's a health policy lawyer and bioethicist. And I will ask her briefly in the opening to describe a bit what Maitri is and the role this organization plays, because I think could be a very, very good model for Romania too, is the neutral actor, stakeholder, which is the producer of knowledge in the same time, but not only also managing, if my understanding is correct, quite an important stream of financing. So all like a really up to the manual think tank in the end. I also want to welcome online Dr. Adrian Bot. He is the researcher / businessman. He is the founding chief scientific officer and executive VIP of research and development of Capstan Therapeutics. But besides all these titles, he is a highly well-respected and experienced scientist in the discovery and development of immunotherapies and cell therapies, and a long friend of Aspen, Romania. Welcome, Dr. Bot. Also want to welcome on my left side Dr. Laurențiu Dașcă, who is basically representing the private player here, but not only, of course. Dr. Dașcă is a country manager at Arenzia Exploratory Medicine, Romania, and he has a rich experience in healthcare management, both in the private and public sector. And least but not last, George Haber. He's the entrepreneur by excellence, and he's an investor in early stage startups, mainly, but not only in the healthcare area. He successfully funded and exited a number of IT companies. So he represents the spirit of capitalism. If you see there, it's a very good title. We have prevention and innovation. This panel is dedicated more to the innovation part. If on prevention, we know how to do things, but we don't have money because there is not a lot of business interest there, so that's the problem. When we are talking about innovation, there is a lot of interest, lots of money, but nevertheless, we still don't know how to do everything when it's about introducing concretely innovation into healthcare system. And the purpose of this panel is trying to bridge among the hype and the glitz of these discussions around e-health, digitalization, AI, which started several years ago. And we are trying to bridge between this hype and glitz and the real life of healthcare professionals, the real life of businessmen who are working here in Romania in the field, and of course, patients. Because many times, patients' lives is not very strongly influenced by all the hype around this industry. So I will stop my introduction and go directly with the opening question to you. So the structure of the panel, we'll have an opening question for each of the participants, and then we're gonna go through discussions, and if you'll have questions, of course, please, you are more than welcome. So my first question for each of you is that even if of course, e-health, especially in hospitals, kind of under-delivered until now. Medical doctors, many times, they don't see the success or the usefulness, at least on bureaucratic stuff, coming from e-health. On the other hand, AI is really very to the fashion right now. Everyone speaks about AI right now, but in many, many countries, as Romania is the case, it's just a beautiful story. So, in the same time, you already know that there is lots of regulatory efforts to tackle and regulate this area. Just this morning, WHO published a really rich and important document on how to regulate AI in healthcare, and of course WHO is only one example. So it means that the future is already here, because when the institutions are already starting to regulate something, it means that things are going on and happening. So in a country like Romania, what is, and I want to start by addressing, invite Erin Williams to answer this first question. In a country like Romania, or similar profile with Romania, what is the first thing that should be done in order to move the needle a little bit? So let's try to make a step back, nothing very high level, and just try to advise for free all the people in the room, maybe also the stakeholders present here. Please, you have the floor.
Sure, thank you so much. Can you hear me all right?
Sure, we are hearing you and seeing you clearly.
Wonderful. Well, it's a great pleasure to be with you today virtually. Thank you, Vlad, for the nice introduction. As you mentioned, MITRE, the company where I work, we're a not-for-profit, and we work very closely with the federal government in a specialized role, operating federally funded research and development centers for them. So we're close enough so that we can access sensitive data and sit on their side of the table, but far enough away from government that we can still tell them, give it our objective opinion when something isn't going right. So anyway, it's a great pleasure to be here. To answer your question, look, I think a dogged focus on outcomes really is the way to go. There are many types of things that could happen in order to affect healthcare there. We've done a lot of work in the US on looking at how to mobilize the private sector. What can the government do? Not necessarily by spending more, but by taking the resources that it has and investing them in a certain way. How can it mobilize the private sector in order to be able to, attract the funding for things, in order to be able to attract the kinds of research that are going to be useful, and looking at that kind of thing with an eye toward economics and putting it to, because that drives so much of what happens in healthcare. Do you have enough staff? What kinds of screening technologies are being developed? And staying focused on outcomes where you can look as well at where the gaps are. I heard earlier in the panel, a focus on screening for cancer, for example, really understanding the root cause of why screening is not, is it that the screening is not available? Is it that people have a transportation issue and can't get there? Is it, are there ways to resolve that with mobile screening, or maybe with transportation and putting a little funding there that could help. And I think also learning from the experiences of others is really, really important. I mean, AI has such great promise, but there have been some epic fails, for example, with AI screening, identifying everything but COVID. So, for example, being trained on data where sicker patients that had COVID were lying down and healthier patients were standing up. So the AI learned that if you're if you're one way, you have COVID, and if you're a different way, you don't. Which isn't, the lesson that it's not what the AI should be telling folks. Or there was AI in the U.S. where it failed to flag Black patients for increased interventions for certain kinds of disease because of an anomaly that associated spending, increased spending with an increased need instead of learning, what was underneath. There are many examples and related to privacy as well. So I think investing as well, coming along with standards that are being developed, and participating in that can be very, very helpful. And that combination of things, I think, can help with the next steps. Over.
Thanks a lot for your intervention, and I'm just going to go directly to Dr. Adrian Bot. You are in the fortunate position of knowing very well also the biotechnology area, how things work in the States, but you also are familiar with the Romanian healthcare system. So I know this is a difficult question because I'm asking you in a couple of minutes to go from a very complex landscape to something very concrete, but the question also remains for you too. So Dr. Bot, what would be the first thing that you've done here in Romania in order to move the needle a bit? Very importantly, why to move the needle a bit, or towards what? Towards making a concrete impact into the life, positive impact into the life of patients or medical doctors, something very close to their skin.
First and foremost, Dr. Miksic, thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure being on this distinguished panel. Secondly, I'm coming from the biopharmaceutical industry ecosystem in the US, which is geared towards innovation cycle and shortening the innovation cycle. I think one of the important objectives in Romania, in my opinion, related to care and digitalization is to integrate Romania also in a larger ecosystem. And one aspect that would help a lot, in my opinion, the physicians and the patients would be actually to integrate, generate and integrate and optimize a system to collect data and share data across hospital with regulatory bodies as well as with the biopharmaceutical organizations or companies that are introducing new treatments to monitor safety concerns, efficacy of new treatments, as well as publicize or socialize side effects and approaches to mitigate those or to manage those in clinic. Through that particular lever, so to speak, one could realize actually more benefit to the patient, as well as integrate Romania in a larger ecosystem. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, and thanks a lot for your very up-to-the-point answer. Dr. Dashko.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation. First of all, I will mention something regarding the access of the patients, because many hospitals have to adapt themselves as the private organizations, private health organizations, are organized for the access. So electronic system of getting in the hospitals, making appointments, not only through emergency or relation with the registration of the hospital. There are already many hospitals who started to do this in the state sector. The second part, it's regarding the doctors and the medical activity. And there is already in place the CHIS, the hospital informatics system, but this has to be adapted to the needs in order to decrease the workflow, because lately in the last 6 years, 7 years, since the National Authority for Quality were implemented the norms for the quality in the health system, the working load was very much increased. So there are already hospitals who started this project. In our presence, it's Dr. Alida Moise, who implemented already a system like this. I say hello to her because we were looking as a pilot model for this type of project, and she decreased the workflow of the medical activity, not only for doctors but as well for the nurses. In
a state or a private?
In a state hospital, military state hospital.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But it can be a pilot project very useful for all of us. And the third part, it's related, so first it's the access of the patients, workload of the doctors and nurses, and third part, it's related with the system. So the system has to be integrated in all the parts. And actually, when I was manager of the state hospital, using my experience in a private sector, as a private hospital as well, I tried to implement that. And first of all, I put in place the position of innovation director in the hospital. And we worked on each of the parts of the hospital. We started with the surgical part, because this is the engine, the operation rooms and the surgical part, and then we started looking further with the IT in each department. This is the main thing, that the first 3 steps that we have to do, in my opinion.
Thank you for your answer, and I will just take an element of what you've just said and go to George.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me? Can you feel me? Good.
Yes.
So I will say with very high level
This
things.
the thing, but let's try to bring the balloon.
It's hard. It's hard to
I
come
know.
down.
It's lots of discussion.
When life is beautiful and opportunities are actually great to innovate. So intelligence in general is the solution to most of life's problems. We agree? I think we do. Artificial intelligence is no different than human intelligence in its ability to solve problems and its mistakes that it makes from time to time. We agree with that? I think we agree with the next statement as well. Healthcare is an extremely complicated problem. It includes lots of moving parts. Demand from sick people or prevention, then buildings that have to be heated, cooled, doctors and nurses that have to be paid and taken care of, doctors that need to take risks in intervention. So it's extremely complicated, scary, but I tell you, government, at least in history, looking back, maybe now with AI, it's possible, has never solved complicated problems. It mostly came from private companies, entrepreneurs, the crazies of the world, as Steve Jobs used to say, whom I met. And, so as an entrepreneur, I see all the problems as opportunities to create solutions, to innovate, to make it better for everybody. And I'm willing to put a bet here. It's recorded, so this system can be 10 times cheaper, 100 times better for all the people involved, patients, doctors, governments, if it adopts the right AI solutions. And if what I promise is not true, shoot me. I'm willing to stand here in this hotel and be executed in a couple of years if this is not true, because I believe in it so much. So I'll let the rest of the world speak. It's doable.
So, Dr. Dashko was, thank you for your optimism. You, George, you're always, you were an optimist and thought in the good heart of the human nature, yeah, in the good side of the human nature. So thank you for this. Laurențiu was saying earlier about interoperability, and also Adrian Bot was emphasizing this issue with interoperability of data. Let's try to think more a bit about Romania, where things, to put it in an elegant way, are not yet there. So how AI, which is, at least in healthcare, a new technology, how AI, generally, many of us here, we are speaking about AI, but we don't really understand in detail how AI works, how machine learning works, and so on and so forth. And usually that's one of those ingredients which increase the chances for a huge failure. Because when you don't understand exactly how you should cook the soup, of course, the chances increase that you will not cook the right soup, or even worse, you will not cook a soup. You just label it as a soup, but it's not a soup. So, solutions. What kind of very practical examples of solutions AI can bring into connecting data from different, very heterogeneous healthcare providers? And these questions is for each of you. I see Laurențiu wants to answer first, please.
There are already in place some principles. The first, the main principle is to have big data in order to interpret and then to have conclusions regarding the process, the diagnostics, and the measures. So, for instance, the first example that I'm coming now, it's regarding the teleradiology and specific on the diagnostic programs in radiology. Because the oncological patients needs a lot of scans. There are a lot of data in their past, and when you give an exam, you have to fulfill a lot of requirements regarding the level of disease, how it was after the treatment, and it's a lot of work. And then that's why the most important companies in the high-tech imagistics developed programs, high data-based, and they are able to make diagnoses sometimes better than a doctor. I cannot say that, but and it's very easy for them. They are already used in teleradiology. So in that phase, many of these companies already have this in place. So they are used to help the doctors to get the results in a shorter period. It's about efficiency and the quality of diagnostics. Another part is teleradiology as well. And some other parts are focused on different fields, but I'm letting the other speakers to have their answers, and I'm coming back.
I direct my question also to Adrian Bot. So from your experience, have you seen a very clear example of I don't know, machine learning, AI solutions used to increase this communication between hospitals, between healthcare providers or other players in the field when the data are very heterogeneous, when there are no standards and so on and so forth?
Absolutely, absolutely. There are very successful examples. By the way, we tend to call artificial intelligence machine learning, at least on the West Coast more recently. But in the course of developing new pharmaceutical agents or new medicines, we have what we call pre-feedback loops in preclinical stage, in clinical trials, as well as in real world with drugs that are approved or therapies that are in use. And these feedback loops allow us actually to generate large integrated data sets, heterogeneous data sets that are utilized in a centralized fashion through machine learning, for example, in order to detect signals related to efficacy or safety, toxicity aspects, access, reimbursement, and so on and so forth. So this type of information has been utilized successfully to accelerate the development approval of cell gene therapies, for example, in cancer, where I was directly involved in, and also lay out the foundation for next generation interventions. So this is an extremely important tool for us, at least in the US, in order to accelerate innovation in the biopharmaceutical field. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And George, the same.
Yeah, so AI, to explain it at very, very high level, is no different than human intelligence. All intelligences, the cat, the human, the computers are learning from data that they read and catalog and categorize. And then the interesting part is the fantasies, the dreams. All of my life, I was wondering, why do we sleep and why do we dream? We sleep to regenerate, but half of the body's energy, 60%, which the brain consumes when we sleep, why is that? And then when AI started to be successful, it dawned on me that actually we do the generation of examples from what we learn to generalize them. And at sleep, we become smarter because we fantasize. We imagine things that are based on realities that we've seen or not, and then it's a cuckoo person. And we use that. So this is AI, and as such, it complements all the doctors. It helps them recognizing from my voice now that I speak. It can recognize if I have a heart problem or if my lungs are not healthy, which also a very good doctor would say, hey, George, go stop drinking or whatever. So this is the fantastic power of AI. And if we embrace it, as I said, 10 times cheaper, 100 times better for the doctors and the patient. If not, shoot me here. I mean, I can feel it, and we all can see the results. Recognizing X-rays, pulse, and a lot of other things.
So let me try to play the role of the public decision maker, and just asking you, whom should I talk to? This AI is marvelous, yeah? It can do marvelous things. I just want something simple. It's not simple, but simpler than I don't know, having a great accuracy in diagnosis melanoma. I just want that a Romanian patient would be able to go from a hospital to another hospital, regardless if it's a private or public one, and the doctor should just write down the ID of that, or using the e-health card, yeah? And immediately all the history of that patient would be on the screen, so that the patient will not have to, go and take all the files, run and make a special trip to a specific hospital in order to take the CT results. Some doctors in mid-sized cities are still asking for scans on CDs.
That's the 10x cheaper right there.
Yeah. So
it's doable.
I know, but
you can
how?
do it today without AI. You should be able to do it today without AI by having the right policies from the government.
Okay, so it's about policies. Erin, if you hear us, do you have any nice case studies when this worked in practice, like some solutions which is based on automatization, because in the end AI it's about this?
Sure. Yeah, several to draw from. I'll add just a little context for what I can share. I'm not an expert in the Romanian healthcare system. I did do a little bit of snooping around and looked at OECD numbers, comparing the US and Romania, because I am very familiar with the US system. I found that the US spends many times more of its GDP and about 10 times more per capita. I'll say our health outcomes are not 3 to 10 times better, though, in the United States. So I think there are lessons that can be learned on all sides. Regarding examples, there are some really good ones. We're looking at, systemic approaches that will enable a lot of things, like a standard health record, one patient, one record, one that's portable with the patient, for example. But even today in the US, some things are done not just by CD, but by fax machine, that records are transferred from one place to another. We have all these electronic records, but they're not interoperable. The reason they're not interoperable is part policy, but in part financial incentive. There's not a financial incentive for folks to pay. So the economic piece is really important to look at that. There are some great examples of work being done in AI specifically about looking at how to make it more trustworthy, that it's important that it be useful, so it's valid and reliable and testable and beneficial, that it be safe, that it be transparent and accountable, that it be explainable and interpretable, and the like. And so there are a lot of efforts going on, and they involve necessarily government and also the private sector that's doing a lot of the development, because there really is a shared interest in making it work well and know that it's working well. So there are some great specific examples. We've done some work at MITRE on resolving ambiguity around something arthritis, where rheumatoid arthritis can be very complicated to diagnose and complicated to treat, and there are many factors. So we've used AI in order to have data-driven diagnostic approaches to improve patient outcomes, and there's been some success there as well. For children's healthcare, there are a few examples. At the University of Virginia, we partnered with them to look at to try to predict and prevent in the NICU when, like before it even would show up, when staff-related infection and others were likely to be present and cause health outcomes that were, cause death and other negative health outcomes. We were very successful in being able to look at early warning signals to detect them using AI technologies and be able to save patients' lives by providing the staff with some alerts and enabling earlier interventions. We're looking at it for mental health as well. One area I noted a distinction where Romania is doing much better than the United States is actually death per 100,000 due to mental disorders. Romania is at about 1.1, and the U.S. is at 42. So we're 40 times worse. I could think of a lot of reasons that the data may show up that way. But there's a lot of interest in the United States and, being able to diminish the impact of mental health and treat it better, especially over great distances. So there's some very good examples, very specific examples about ways that AI has been used in order to be able to improve health and improve outcomes. There are also some very significant efforts underway across the U.S. and within MITRE related to cancer treatments, developing something called ENCODE, which is related to identifying the specific data elements that already exist in electronic health records and the like that can be used for cancer diagnostics and tuning treatments, and also for research. If things are going well, there is a really beautiful synergy between patient care and the electronic health records, research, real world data, and the like. But it requires a lot of attention to the standardization, to knowing what data is being used in what way, and also to privacy and security.
Thank you. Erin, I will just take the opportunity to ask you, explain a bit more what's MITRE basically, because in my opinion, it's a very interesting body. We don't have something like that in Romania. As a matter of fact, even if we have a thriving IT private sector, things are still lagged when we are talking about e-health in the public governmental arena. As a matter of fact, we are waiting to see the e-health, the digital strategy, which, as far as I know, was presented to some high public servants at the EU Commission. But what is MITRE? I mean, because you are also using public funds, federal funds, isn't it? Or managing federal funds?
Right. That's a great question. So MITRE is essentially it's a not-for-profit organization that works with various parts of the federal government and the private sector, focused on creating a safer world and solving really difficult problems that are system-wide across government. We have about 10,000 people that work in our organization. So it's large. It's not. I mean, there are bigger organizations that exist, and the people are deep technical experts in many different kinds of things, in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, and economics, in systems engineering, in policy, and the like. And we engage with the federal government, and we work with others as well. We work with state and local governments. We work with some international governments, in order to provide deep technical expertise, in order to look at sensitive data that maybe wouldn't be available to others, because it wouldn't be appropriate. We have very, very rigorous conflict of interest requirements to ensure that the information that we're providing is accurate and benefits everybody. So it's structured in a way so that all the incentives are for problem solving and outcomes focused research. We work very closely with many parts of government, which actually provides a benefit across, because for example, we started a lot of our folks work very closely in cybersecurity with defense, but then we transition that information into that capability into health. and we have done a lot of work related to cybersecurity and medical devices and networked environments, and hospital systems, and developed playbooks related to what local systems can do, especially ones that are vulnerable and less developed, that maybe don't have the same resources available elsewhere. What can they do to help prevent cyber attacks, and what can they do if something comes up? So that's been a really powerful, and we also then advise the regulators. We advise our Food and Drug Administration, which is the regulator of medical products in the U.S., about what they should consider when they're approving medical devices, for example. And that's just one small example. We work broadly across the government. We are funded largely by governments asking us to do things. Like we do have some other forms of funding, but primarily our funding comes from the federal government itself, and we play this very specialized role.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Just a short answer from you, yes or no. Are you worried by data privacy issues related to AI AI applications in healthcare?
Yes.
Okay, so let me go with exactly the same question to Dr. Adrian Bott. How is this tackled in the biopharmaceutical field? If you have some examples when this was successfully managed, because the problem is there to remain, definitely. But can it be managed, and if yes, how?
I think that one of the key challenges in biopharmaceutical industry is to make sure that there is a continuous flow of information in an anonymized way, so that we can make use of that information almost real time. So accessing the information, integrating large heterogeneous data sets, including gene sequencing information, and making sure that we respect all the rules and regulations and HIPAA and so on and so forth, in a way that will allow us to utilization of machine learning to boost our capability to find the needle in the haystack, so to speak, to find those particular signals that will inform us on how to better utilize a treatment that is already approved, or how to develop a next generation treatment modality. And one concrete example is in the area of first generation of cell gene therapies. We call them CAR-T. They're famous nowadays in the US because they're curative in certain cancers. These type of immunotherapies are coming with some severe toxicities in some patients. They're very powerful drugs. These are powerful treatments that can really eradicate up to the last cancerous cell in some patients. But this comes with the price of what we call cytokine storm syndrome, a flu-like syndrome that can be managed very well in clinic if you have access to the appropriate agents, right? So the information that will help us and healthcare providers and patients is related to when this type of adverse events may trigger, and which patients who actually is more predisposed to experience such adverse events. I think that this type of information, if it's accessed appropriately, will help the patient as well as the healthcare provider to have all the appropriate measures in place to preempt and manage better certain treatment. Thank you for the question.
Thanks a lot for the answer. Laurențiu, your company, Arencia, is working in the clinical trials area, if I'm not wrong, phase
1B2A.
1B2A. So this is early, probably first in-person clinical trials. Here in Romania, what's your experience with collecting data using IT system, because probably you are using them, and privacy, because there is lots of it's quite an important lack of trust in the country, both in the pharma industry and in the government. So it seems a bit tricky, huh?
There are some rules in the industry that we have to follow. On the other hand, there are data in our sites that are only in our network. They are not in the hospital network, so they are not exposed. It's important to know that these are very regulated. So we are following the regulation, the international regulations.
But what about those data which are present in the networks of public hospitals, let's say, or I mean, how do you deal with those?
We have two different networks.
Okay, so we should go back to...
It's like in the army.
Yeah, so we should go back to my initial question about interoperability, because there are many parallel systems, both in hospitals and in the industry, and the interface between them. So this seems a very tricky issue that we're not gonna solve before lunch, unfortunately. But let me go to another interesting dilemma. And George, you are the best person to start the discussion about who should pay for, let's say, an intervention like a software as medical device solution. This could be implemented in Romania already, yeah, in some hospitals. Who and how should pay for that?
So that is governmental policy, part of the social contract that Mr. Joanna is talking about as well, extremely clearly. We have a social contract by paying taxes with a government that is above us. And as part of the social contract, we should decide how much of health prevention, which is the most important, 1 ounce of prevention is 1,000 kilograms of payment, then medical expenses, and then education of resources, doctors, training, AI, and so on and so forth. Regarding the data security, it's no different than humans. A human in a hospital can copy on a USB drive or send an email with all the data. AI has no incentive to do that. So it's in a way policy, but I think the innovation will come from inky-dinky little startups that will show the way, and then the government will decide if they adopt or stay behind. That it happened throughout human history. The same thing, the social contract between the Romans and Caesar after he burned Rome. I don't think the Romans were happy.
I mean, you're definitely right, but if we are thinking at some very current issues, so how would the medicine agency in Romania know if to recommend for reimbursement? I mean, of course, you don't know that, but I'm just out loud thinking, like a big brainstorming session. How they should do it? What should be the pathway in order, for instance, to be able to reimburse and approve something like a software as medical device solution? How can you establish the endpoints exactly to have relevant endpoints on this? Because you cannot wait. I mean, should you do this looking as we are looking today at other EU regulatory agencies and bodies, ignoring completely the huge issues of transferability of clinical endpoints and clinical data in the end? Or if we are talking about this kind of software as medical devices solutions, they are highly cultural specific, way much more than, I mean, they are way much, because they are behavioral interventions many times, yes. So should we wait for this to develop here, or should we just try to find, just go, no regulatories, just do a pilot innovation
Absolutely.
fund, something like that.
That's the way. You try
No
it.
rules, just try to...
You try it. The hospital will decide if it's good or not. Erin, I will be back in Virginia tomorrow, I think. So I'll contact you and we'll have a coffee or lunch somewhere in the area, and we can talk about what we can do for the US. But by the way, many of the new things will be significantly cheaper than the IT solutions that you're buying from the giants that actually don't really help you solve this problem because they wrote that software 100 years ago.
Laurențiu? Yeah, thanks.
HTA issue, it's a very long story in Romania, but fortunately, in the next 6 months, this is a priority for the ANME, as I know. On the other hand, those companies who have something innovative as products, they usually have international studies regarding their innovative things, but sometimes, lately in many occasions, they gave the devices to some hospitals in Romania, or they gave medication to the hospital. Institute of Oncology has many projects like this. And on the other hand, when it's coming the focus on the new medication, it is asked the conclusion of the specific commission of the health ministry. So when you have a new medication,
I was afraid of this answer. So if innovative therapeutic solutions would go to the Ministry of Health,
medication,
yeah, maybe. I just want to stop because, as I told you, the main problem with this panel was the lack of time. Aspen can organize a specific forum only on this topic with way much more concrete, detailed discussions than these high-level discussions. I just want to ask you from the room if anyone has any question. Okay, so if not, I just want to thank all the guests. To just don't want to forget anyone. Thank you, Erin. I encourage you to search and Google it. Maitri is in Romanian is Mitre. It's a really very, very interesting organization and body in the state. Thank you, Dr. Bot. Thank you, George Haber, and thank you, Laurențiu Dașcă. And lunch is waiting for you. I was asked by the organizer to tell you that lunch is awaiting for you in the restaurant. And thank you for the whole day, and looking forward to meet you again next year, probably. Have a nice lunch.
thank you.